Everyone has a strong opinion about real estate versus stocks, and almost nobody has actually run the real math side by side. Once you do, the answer isn't what either side of that argument wants to hear. My name is Kai Cash, and I spend way too much time thinking about the arguments people have with total confidence and almost no actual numbers behind them. If you've ever sat through a dinner table debate about which one actually builds more wealth, stick around, because I ran the real math, and the honest answer depends on one specific factor almost nobody brings up in these arguments. Subscribe if you want the actual comparison, instead of another opinion piece. Here's what both sides of this argument usually get wrong. The stock crowd points to raw historical returns and declares an easy victory. The real estate crowd points to people who got rich from property and declares the opposite. Both are technically using real data. Neither is comparing the same thing, which is exactly why this argument never actually resolves itself online. Think of it like comparing a sports car to a freight train on pure speed alone. The sports car wins that comparison easily, every single time, if the only thing being measured is top speed on an open road. But that comparison ignores what each vehicle is actually built to carry, and under what conditions each one performs the way it's designed to. Comparing raw stock returns to raw real estate appreciation makes the same mistake. It measures speed while ignoring the one factor that changes everything about how real estate actually works. Here's the mechanism, and it's the entire reason this debate stays unresolved. Leverage. When you buy stocks, you typically pay the full amount. When you buy real estate, you typically put down a fraction of the total price, 20% being common, and a bank covers the rest. That structural difference means real estate appreciation isn't actually being measured against the full property value. It's being measured against the much smaller amount you actually put in. Let's put real numbers on this, because vague references to leverage don't actually settle anything. Historically, the S&P 500 has returned around 10 to 12% annually, including reinvested dividends over long periods. Residential real estate, measuring pure price appreciation, has historically grown closer to 4 to 5% annually. On paper, stocks look like they're not even close. But here's where leverage changes the picture entirely. Say you put $100,000 down on a $400,000 property. That property only needs to appreciate at that modest 4 to 5% rate for your actual return to look dramatically different. Because you're earning appreciation on the full $400,000, not just your initial 100. Here's the part that will genuinely surprise you. Run the actual compounding math across both scenarios, and the two paths run remarkably close for the first 2 to 3 decades. One detailed model found that stocks' exponential compounding doesn't clearly overtake leveraged real estate until somewhere around year 28. Before that point, leverage is doing enough heavy lifting to keep real estate competitive, even against an asset class with a meaningfully higher raw return. I'll be honest with you, I used to be firmly in the stocks win camp. Mostly because I was only ever comparing the raw percentage numbers without accounting for leverage at all. It wasn't until I actually modeled out a real $100,000 down payment against a real $100,000 stock investment, with realistic assumptions on both sides, that I realized how much of the real estate argument was quietly being carried by other people's money. Not by real estate itself being a fundamentally better asset. Here's a before and after most people never calculate. Before you understand this, which one wins feels like a simple question with one correct answer waiting to be found. After you understand it, you realize the honest answer is it depends on your time horizon and how much leverage you're using, which is a far less satisfying sentence to argue about online, but a far more accurate one to actually plan around. And here's another one. Before you understand this, real estate's lower raw return rate feels like a disqualifying weakness compared to stocks. After you understand it, you realize that weakness is largely offset, at least for the first 2 to 3 decades, by a structural advantage stocks simply don't offer most individual investors. the ability to control an asset several times larger than your actual cash investment. Now, here's where people usually take this too far in the wrong direction. So let me be clear. This isn't an argument that real estate is secretly better than stocks, or that leverage makes property investing risk-free. Leverage cuts both directions. A drop in property value hits your actual equity far harder than the same percentage drop would hit an unleveraged stock position. And real estate carries costs, maintenance, vacancy, and illiquidity that a simple appreciation percentage doesn't capture at all. The honest takeaway isn't that one option is correct and the other is a mistake. It's that stocks offer higher raw returns with far more simplicity and liquidity, while real estate offers a leverage advantage that can close much of that gap over the medium term. At the cost of complexity, concentration, and real ongoing effort. Which one actually makes sense for you depends heavily on your time horizon, how hands-on you want to be, and how comfortable you are with leverage, cutting against you as easily as it cuts for you. So the next time this argument comes up at dinner or in a comment section, I want you to ask the question underneath the question. Not which one is better, but over what time horizon and using how much leverage. Because the version of you who asks that question isn't dodging the debate. They're the only one in the room who actually ran the real math, instead of just picking a side and defending it. And that's the whole point of this channel, helping you run the real numbers, instead of just picking a side. Subscribe for more videos like this one.